said that there was no way that I was going to read 12 books this month. Well, I didn't. I read 14, and I don't know how it happened, but I'm very, very pleased about it because I have been trying desperately to get more books off of my TBR so that I can buy new books. So let's just jump right into it because I'm trying to make these videos shorter. So this month I read 14 books. I read 3,661 pages, so it is slightly less pages than how many I read last month because the books this month were all slightly shorter. And the first one I started off with was The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. I gave this book 5 stars. It was a cute little contemporary about this girl Molly who has all these unrequited crushes, and she's never actually had a boyfriend, and this is kind of her love story getting her first boyfriend and sort of stepping out of the shadow of her twin sister. It was cute, it was quirky, it was a really fluffy YA contemporary. There wasn't like a whole ton of substance to it, but that's what I was looking for. I was looking for an easy book coming off of reading 3 high fantasy books the month before, and I sped right through it. I have no complaints, 5 stars. Picked up Bad Girls Don't Die by Katie Alander, something like that. Afterwards, this is a spooky read. I maybe should have saved it for October, but that's okay. It is about these 2 sisters who they live in this house that they bought with the parents. I don't know, I don't really want to tell you too much about it because I don't want to give anything away, but basically shit starts going down and there's a really creepy doll involved and one of the little girls gets possessed, and we're just trying to piece together the storyline from there. I think that I gave it 4 stars, I don't remember, because I am so excited for Turtles All the Way Down to be coming out this month since it is officially October. I decided to read An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. It's one of the few John Green books I have not actually read, and I was kind of sad. I didn't really like it that much. I gave it 3 stars. I think I really like the idea of John Green in my head, but I don't really like his books as much whenever I actually read them. But the idea of John Green as an author is something that's always really exciting. I know that that's very strange, but yeah, I don't know. It's a book about this kid who's kind of like a social outcast, and he's supposed to be a prodigy, and he has that, like, you know, smart kid complex that you have growing up where everybody tells you you're supposed to do something great and then you don't, and then you're like, oh well, I guess I'm kind of nothing. And so it's about this kid who has this complex. He only dates girls named Catherine. He has dated 19 girls named Catherine. He gets dumped and goes on a road trip with his friend right after they graduate from high school with $10,000 he won in like a quiz kid show game or something like that, and he tries to create like an algorithm or an equation or something to predict the relationship that he has with these Catherines so that he can find a Catherine that he's basically going to keep forever. I thought that the storyline was really predictable. I didn't like any of the Catherines. I didn't really like his best friend. I don't even really think I necessarily even liked Colin, the main character, all that much. What I did end up liking about the book is the fact that, like, you have all these like footnotes and graphs and things throughout it. It's like there was actually a lot of math in this book, which I know that sounds like super lame, but there were like math equations while he was trying to figure out, you know, how to create this theory or whatever for predicting the relationship he has with Catherine's. And the entire book is filled with like little footnotes and annotations and things like that, and I had a much more interesting time like reading the annotations than I did reading the actual story, which is not a very good sign that it was a great story. Meh. 3 stars. Hoping Turtles All the Way Down is a lot better because I pre-ordered the probably signed edition and it's supposed to come in like 10 or 11 days, so I'm excited for that. Then I read We Were Never Here by Jennifer Gilmore. I've never read anything by this author. It was totally 100% a cover buy. I thought that this was like a really pretty sunset that goes throughout the book, and that's what drew my attention to it. It's about this girl who one day just like she gets sick out of nowhere. She ends up spending all this time in the hospital and nobody knows what's wrong with her. Nobody knows if she's gonna live or not. Kind of like came out of nowhere, and she spends days and days and days in the hospital, and this boy comes around to see all the people in the hospital. He has like a therapy dog and he like volunteers there or whatever, and sort of becomes her only friend because you know, all your friends forget about you whenever you're in the hospital, and, you know, people's lives move on, but yours doesn't, because you're stuck sitting there day after day. So like she gets better and he starts to get worse, and I won't tell you that much more about it. I gave it 3.5 stars. So I mean, it was pretty good. It was pretty okay. I liked it. It wasn't that long. The cover's still really pretty. I'm glad I bought it, but it wasn't necessarily anything special. Picked up The Gift of Therapy by Irvin Yalom. I picked up this book because I'm a therapist, and so I really like reading things that are kind of like, they're like letters to other therapists, or sometimes they read as like textbooks, stuff like that. This guy actually wrote several of the textbooks that I had while I was in graduate school. He's a group therapist, he's a psychotherapist, he's really well renowned. Like, you can actually trust that the stuff that he's gonna write in this book is sound therapeutic advice and not something you're gonna find at the self-help section at Barnes & Noble, which I don't even want to get started talking about because that section kind of drives me crazy. This book was really good. I knew it was going to be really good. He's great. I gave it 5 stars. I think he has a really lot of sound and solid advice for therapists in the novel. One of the things that I really liked is that all the chapters in this were super short, because they're all just like snippets of information and things for you. So, you know, there's like 80 some chapters, but each of the chapters is only a couple pages long, and they're all different like examples of things that you'll find in therapy or things that you're working with, and sort of his advice on the matter. So I have no complaints about this book. Picked up 2 books after that from Target, which were also cover buys, because Target released new editions of these books and made me realize that, oh shit, I don't actually own them, and I don't know how I've never owned them before. But I got Quidditch Throughout the Ages, and I got Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, both by J.K. Rowling. If you don't want to count these as books, that's fine, but I am counting them as books that I read. They both have about 100 pages in them. They count. They both have 5 stars. I mean, obviously anything that J.K. Rowling writes is going to be 5 stars. At least in my opinion, it's going to be. They also had these 2, and then they also had the Tales of Beetle the Bard. I didn't pick that one up because I have that one in the original cover. But these were really cute. I mean, it's nice to get like a little like fix of the Harry Potter universe every now and then when I can. You know, this one was written like it was a library book, which was really cute. There's a lot of like detailing in this edition that I really appreciated. There's like a foreword from Dumbledore and from one of the librarians at Hogwarts. It just tells you about how Quidditch came to be a sport. It tells you about the Golden Snitch, you know, problems that they've had with Muggles, you know, discovering the sport. There's a lot of really cute like graphics and pictures throughout that I really enjoyed. There's like snippets from like newspaper articles and stuff like that. This was great. I dove right back into Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Newt Scamander. If you haven't seen the movie, I super highly recommend seeing the movie because it was great. This one is not laid out like a library book, but this one does have a foreword in it, which is really cute because the foreword like says to appear only in like the Wizarding edition, or like not for Muggles, you know. And obviously that's a joke because here we have a Muggle reading it. And then there's a cute little disclaimer like saying, in the Muggles edition, make it very clear that none of this is actually real and it's all just a joke and good fun and whatever. And so again, I thought that this was really well done. There's a lot of cute little nuances throughout it. This one basically gives you like the ABCs of all these different, you know, Fantastic Beasts. A couple of them have images, a couple of them have footnotes. They just tell you how they, you know, cataloged in the early days. They tell you about how they hid all the creatures from Muggles. They tell you about what they have problems with. I don't know. I don't have very much to say about it. It was really cute. It was really good. I think that these editions are beautiful, and I'm very glad that I own them. They're gonna go right on my Harry Potter shelf. The next book that I picked up was Story of a Girl by Sarah Zarr. I have also never heard of this author before, so, but there was like a little thing saying that John Green thought this was a good book, and we already talked about how I have this thing for John Green, even though I don't really like his books as much when I read them, so, but okay, whatever. So this book is, she was caught in the back of a truck with another boy when she was 13. It was her brother's ex-best friend, and he was like 17 or 18, or he was like a senior in high school or whatever, and she gets branded the school slut because she lives in a small town, and her dad caught them, and her dad like won't look her in the eye, thinks that she's like this terrible person and she did this horrible thing and how could you and whatever. And so like that's the introduction story, and then you fast forward to when she's 16 and trying to deal with all the repercussions of this. This book, I like read so many books that I have to keep looking down because I don't remember what I gave them all. I gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was a really good story. It was a really quick read. I think I read it actually in one night whenever I was working a night shift. It was really nice to see how she began to have a voice for herself and how she began to stand up for herself and basically not take the crap that everybody's saying about her anymore. So 4 stars. Next I read Dirty Rush by Taylor Bell. And this was probably one of my most disappointing books that I read this month. I really didn't like it. I think I gave it like 2.5 stars or something like that. This girl Taylor Bell, who's in a sorority, she like wrote a book to tell people what it's actually like. What it's actually like is exactly what I thought it was actually like, and the reason why I don't really want anything to do with sororities and kind of why I avoided them. I get that she was trying to paint a good light on Greek life, but she didn't do a very good job. You know, she talks about how sororities get this really bad rap, but then she talks about her sorority and how like some of the girls were selling drugs to other students on campus, how they went to frat parties, you know, every single night and got like crazy stupid drunk. She talks about like rush week and all the things that they had to do and how they had to like make out with random boys and take pictures of themselves naked in fountains and do all this kind of like crazy stuff. The main premise of the story is that there's this sex tape that gets released that's one of the girls in the sorority like having sex with like 3 guys or something, and it gets this really bad publicity, and then the sorority gets in trouble, and you know, there's like girls trying to steal each other's boyfriends and girls trying to get revenge on each other. Like, why do you think that that is painting a good light on sorority life? Because let me tell you, it's not. Like, that makes me want to run for the hills. That makes me think that I would never want to be a part of Greek life. Like, every stereotype that I have ever heard about being in a sorority, you wrote about in this book and then thought that you were doing a great thing. And so I don't understand. Maybe I just didn't get it. Maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe the whole thing's supposed to be like satire or a joke or something like that, but I really don't think so. But overall, I was very unimpressed with this book, and I think that what the author was trying to do, she did the exact opposite. So yeah. Fortunately, the next book that I picked up after that off of my TBR was a book that my friend had got me for my birthday that I was very, very excited to read. I was reading The Weight of Zero by Karen Fortunati, I think. My friend Shannon got me this book for my birthday, and it was fantastic. Gave it 5 stars. It is about this girl who has bipolar disorder, and she is trying to navigate the diagnosis. She's trying to navigate her life after like a suicide attempt a year or 2 ago or something like that, and after she went through a period of mania. It's just her and her mom and her trying to basically like get through high school and, you know, make new friends for herself because all her friends kind of left her after everything went down, and she ends up in this like program where she goes a couple hours after school for like group therapy, and it's sort of about her experiences coming to terms with the fact that she has bipolar disorder and she's probably going to have it for the rest of her life. Actually, it was a really good book. Sometimes I get really iffy about books that talk about mental illness and mental health, but I thought this one was really well done. I don't have like really any complaints about this book. I wrote a whole review about it on Goodreads. I loved it so much. I'm so very glad that this author chose to write this book, and I hope that she writes more. So I just realized that I have read a lot of really good books this month, because the next book that I'm going to talk about I also gave 5 stars to, and that is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This book, let me tell you, this book fucked me up so bad. This book gave me a book hangover, and I still don't even know like really what to say about it, except that I loved it so much. So this is like an adult, I don't know, I guess it's like an adult mystery or something like that. And I don't really read a lot of adult books. I read a lot of YA, so I've been trying to venture out a little bit more, and that's why I read this book at the suggestion of my friend, and I'm so glad that I did. So it's about this girl named Camille, who is a reporter living in Chicago. She gets asked to go back to her hometown to cover the news story of the murders of these two little girls that happened a year apart, that her boss thinks is like a serial murder or something like that. And so she goes back into town to try to figure out what's going on in her small town, where her mom and her stepdad and her half-sister still live. Her half-sister is like 13. And this book, like, all the characters in this book were like, they were like gritty, and they were real, and they were dysfunctional, and they were just like, I don't even want to say creepy, because that's like, I'm looking for a stronger word than that, but I don't have one right now. But like, this book was raw. That's what it was. This book was raw, and I loved it. I got like, I don't know, maybe a third of the way through the book, and I kind of thought I knew who did it, kind of thing, and I was right, but that didn't even really bother me. I don't think that was even really like most of the point of the novel. Like, I saw it coming, and I saw it coming, I had guessed what had happened, and then when it had happened, I was still like completely like thrown off by it, and it was completely like, oh my god, that actually happened. Like, it still like really threw me through a loop. I don't even think I want to say too much more about this book, other than that I think you should read it, because it's fantastic. And if you're nervous about adult literature like I am sometimes, this is a really good book to get you into it. You know, the mystery aspect of it is not too confusing. This is not a boring book. I read this book pretty quickly. It's a pretty short book too, which is nice if you're nervous about like a new genre that you don't read all that often. I'm really connected to this main character like a lot, and I don't know, it was so like, it was hard to read about her experiences. It was really hard to watch her like go back into her hometown and be with her family that is just so toxic and not good for her and not good for her recovery, and just like watching her try really, really hard to keep it together throughout this novel, and then what happens at the end, and I just like, it was really hard to read, it was really hard to watch it happen, and at the same time, like, I couldn't put it down. 5 stars. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna pick up Dark Places the next time that I'm able to find it, because it's another book that this author wrote, and I've heard that it's really, really good as well. Picked up a big book after that, Night Falls Fast by K. Jameson. This is a book that you probably wouldn't pick up unless you're in the field that I am. It's an entire book about suicide. It's actually like 30 years old or something like that. Like, it's pretty old, and it reads like a textbook. It kind of is a textbook. So if you're not really into reading a textbook, you probably don't want to read this. I had a really hard time reading this, because how do you rate a book that is like 30 years old and kind of outdated and basically a textbook in and of itself? I don't know. But I gave it 3 stars. It was really thick. It was really dense to get through. It was like, I don't know, 400 or more pages, and you know, it's textbook. So you're probably thinking, why did you read this boring, sad, probably sad book? Well, let me tell you, the reason that I read this book is because, like I said, I'm a therapist, I work in crisis, I'm very interested in depression, I'm very interested in suicide, I'm very interested in like schizophrenia and bipolar and a lot of the more tough illnesses to work with or to treat. So I read this book for that reason. And also because, like I said, this book was written 30 years ago. 30 years ago, the third leading cause of death for people who are 15 to 24 was suicide, and now it's the second leading cause of death, and that's a problem. And that's why I'm reading the book, because I think that we need to do something about it. So, you know, what I'm doing is just trying to increase my understanding of, you know, what happens with young people, and trying to see how I can help. We are almost at the end, people. There are 2 books left, one of them being Black Star Bright Dawn by Scott Odell. This was a very, very teeny tiny little book that I read. It's like maybe a little over 100 pages, and it was kind of just like a pleasure read. Like I just wanted something, like I needed something really quick and soft and cute after, you know, reading this huge honker of a sad, depressing book. I needed something easy. So this is a middle grade book. It is about a girl named Bright Dawn and her experiences running the Iditarod. So the Iditarod is this dog sled race that happens in Alaska. It covers like over 1,000 miles of race. It goes through several towns. It starts down in Anchorage and it goes all the way up to Nome, Alaska. If you've never been to Alaska, then look up something about the Iditarod and you might have a better understanding of it. I have been to Alaska. I've only been to Anchorage, but it was beautiful and it was cold. I was there in March and they had a cold snap and it was like -4. And where this girl was dog sledding up in Nome, I mean, it could be like up to like -40 degrees and she's out like running this sled. And so it's a story about her and the lead dog on her team, Black Star, the one pictured right there, and just their experience running the Iditarod. It was a cute book. It was a middle grade book. You know, there wasn't a whole lot to it and that was kind of the point. I thought it was, you know, really fluffy and nice and had a good message, and I gave it 4 stars. My entire book pile just fell over, so okay. We are there. We are to the very last book that I read this month, and I am counting it as a book that I read this month, even though I technically finished it 3 minutes into October 1st. I swear to God, it's only because I was updating my Goodreads and I had so many like, oh my God moments that I was posting about that. Okay, whatever, I'm counting it anyway. The book that I'm talking about is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake. This is a fantasy book, which, like I said, I don't read a lot of fantasy, but I was really excited for this. I thought it was going to be atmospheric and really good for going into October, and oh my God, it was amazing. 5 stars. Such a good book. So this is about, this is a tale of 3 queens who are all born as triplets every generation on this island. They're separated when they're little kids. They're all each said to have a power. So one of them is a naturalist, so she can like make plants grow and has a connection with animals and things like that. One is an elementalist, so she can control the weather and she can create like thunderstorms and, you know, like hurricanes, and she can like make fire move and things like that. And the third one is said to be a poisoner, someone who can create potions and poisons to kill other people while being immune to the potions herself. And so this book is about these 3 sisters coming to age at 16. They all are supposed to meet and they have an entire year to kill each other basically, and the last one standing is the one who gets crowned queen. The one thing I will say though is it was fast paced, but it was a little hard to get started. So if you're like considering DNFing this book and you've only read like 30 to 60 pages, give yourself 100 pages. Give yourself 100 pages in this book and then make up your mind, because it gets so much better after that. It's like a 400-page book. It gets so much better after the first 100 pages. So just trust me and give yourself a chance on it. I think that's really all I have to say.